Well, George Karl has used every opportunity to emphasize how frustrating it was to coach Carmelo Anthony, taking several jabs throughout the years. And this week was, well, no different when he responded to a tweet quoting Melo's championship aspirations, keeping him up at night, saying, quote, "And it kept our coaching staff up at night a decade ago when we were stressing the importance of team play and defense." It's not going to stop here. Shannon, what did you make of the shots that George Karl took at Carmelo?
If it was unnecessary, George, let it go. I understand it didn't end, you know, Carmelo forced his way out of Denver.
Yep.
And basically ended his George Karl's career in Denver.
He did.
Because he was a superstar and he went to the Knicks. And maybe that rubbed George the wrong way. We know Carmelo was never the greatest defensive player. Didn't focus a whole lot on that side of the ball. But now is not the time. That happened so long ago, George, and you still harboring that. And now I see why Boogie Cousins keep, you know, every time you mention somebody mention Boogie Cousins' name, he put their little emoji snake in there. Because you keep stuff going, bro. Let this go. Y'all grown. He's moved on. You've moved on. There was no need for you to interject into this. Where Carmelo is, he's at a different place in his life. And he says, like, you know what? I understand. It's hard to get a guy that's trying to make a name for himself, Skip, to see, because Carmelo is a bona fide scorer. And to try to get him to be something, to be an overall player, like, nah, this is what I want to do. We'll focus on that. He was young. And now he realizes it takes more than just offense to win a championship. It takes sacrifice.
Yep.
And I'm not so sure that young guys understand the sacrifice that it takes to win a championship. But as they get older and the opportunities start to draw up, they start to understand, these are some of the things I'm going to have to do. But Skip, I thought this was very unnecessary. What? Very unnecessary. He didn't need to do this.
Okay, so I know George Karl pretty well, spent a lot of time around him in our days at ESPN. I knew him before ESPN when he was a head coach for many years. And as you know, he played for the team you grew up loving, North Carolina. He played for the great Dean Smith. So he learned to play basketball the right way. As Larry Brown did, the right way, playing for Dean Smith. So Carmelo drove him crazy because he saw so much in Carmelo that wasn't broad enough. Like he had so many other talents that he couldn't exploit because Carmelo focused on one thing and one thing only, and it was scoring the basketball, and he could score it. So he played 8 seasons in Denver. Were you there some of those years? Yeah, you were. Okay, so Carmelo averaged 25 points a game over 8 seasons. Pretty great.
Pretty good.
6 rebounds and only 3 assists. The first thing George told me about Carmelo that he said he often told Carmelo, you could average 10 assists a night if you so chose. You would have to focus on that side of the offense.
He might not average 25 points in 10.
He might not, but knowing Carmelo, he would have a chance. The other thing was 6 rebounds a game, not bad, but George said, with that body that you have and the natural strength you have, you could average 10 a game if you would focus on that part of that aspect of offense, And then you brought up the defense. It was just an afterthought to Carmelo. He just wasn't interested at all at that end of the floor, So that drove George and the coaching staff nuts. I agree with you. It's so long ago that it's still haunting George, but George was responding to Carmelo saying it's keeping him up at night that he doesn't have a ring. Well, how close did they come? That one year, they got to Kobe's Lakers in the conference finals. And what happened in that year? And you might remember that team. That team had Kenyon and Chauncey.
They took a game from the Lakers.
Well, they went all the way to Game 6. You know, they got closed out in Game 6 at home. By the way, Denver had Dante Jones, and they had J.R. Smith and Birdman coming off the bench. So and Nene is there. So it's a pretty good basketball team, right? So it's Game 6 is in Denver, and it becomes the closeout game because they got blown out at home. So what happened in that game? Carmelo scored 25 points, but he had 2 rebounds and 2 assists. I'm sure that just drove George crazy. And he shot 6 of 17 from the floor. He got to the free throw line, made 12 of 15. But Kobe scored 35 in that game with 6 rebounds and 10 assists and took the game over. From Carmelo in Carmelo's house. And they just romped and won and went on and wiped out Orlando in 5 games in the finals. When everybody thought it was going to be, obviously, LeBron versus Kobe in the finals.
But Skip, I mean, if you think about it, look, the Spurs. The Spurs was in their heyday. They wouldn't get past the Spurs. And then once they got Powell, They wasn't getting past the Lakers,
Yeah.
but they make it seem like, well, if Carmelo would have done this, y'all wasn't getting past him, Duncan.
Yeah, I got it. There's truth to what George is saying about Carmelo, but it's old, too old truth, right?
We've all been around people. I played with guys, and I told them, do you realize how special you could be if you did this, this, and this?
Precisely.
They don't realize it. They get older. They're like, man, you know what? You were right.
And
Clinton
Porter help anyone to say that stuff about him now as he's trying to continue. Guys, the NFL announced some changes for this upcoming season.
Oh, man, they always got some changes.
Hey, I'll share the latest next. We are live from LA. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe. Good morning over there.
I was so bored last night.
Really? I thought the Cowboys were 1-0. They are 1-0 on Hard Knocks. They showed you every reason why they are going to win the NFC least this year.
What are they right now in the preseason?
Well, they're
I hate to admit it, Shannon, I was going to say bored too. I don't know. I just wasn't, there wasn't a lot there.
Well, I'm not going to be bored when I get to talk about it in about 15 or 20 minutes.
All right, I promise you guys, the Cowboys made their Hard Knocks debut. We will be all over it, but we have to start with the latest surrounding Shannon's team, the Lakers, because during his introductory press conference yesterday, Russell Westbrook said he understands his new role playing alongside LeBron and the Lakers. Russ said he knows his job is to make LeBron's game easier for him, adding, quote, LeBron is one of the best players to play this game, and his ability to do everything on the floor allows me to just figure it out. There's many different ways you can impact the game without having the ball in your hand. So, Shannon, did Westbrook convince you this will work?
Skip, I don't know how you look at it, but I look at press conferences when an individual does a press conference. I look at it like someone meeting the in-laws for the very first time. Everybody's on their best behavior. They say all the great things. I've heard so many great things about you. Oh, I just couldn't wait to meet you. Oh, wow, you're so great. You've raised a wonderful child. You say all the right things. How many times does someone go to the... I'm going to be me. I'm going to play exactly in L.A. the way I played in OKC, exactly the way I played with the Washington Wizards. Did you expect him to say that? Now, I sincerely believe that Russell Westbrook always wanted to play for his hometown team. I sincerely believe that, Skip.
No doubt.
I believe he wanted to be close to his family. We know what type of family man, how he loves his friends. He keeps those guys close to him. I believe all those things. But, Skip, Russ has never been a third option. Russ has only been 1A at worst. At worst.
Yep.
You talked about all the time how the conflict was KD and Russ was like, I'm equal too. So therefore I should shoot as much from the same places that KD is allowed to shoot from.
Yep.
So for me, Skip, I know it sounds good to say, you know what, LeBron is one of the all-time greats. He can do some of everything. And so it's my job to figure it out. But, man, that's a lot easier said than done when you've only played one style of basketball basically your entire NBA career. Now, I'm anxious to see. Now, that might work game 5. That might work, but I'm going to check back game 35, game 45, and still see if everybody feels the exact same way.
Okay.
It's going to be very interesting to see Russell Westbrook plays some other way other than the way that made him what he is. That's hard to change when you become this figure that we know and love, Mr. Triple-Double, an MVP, a stat king, a stat machine.
Yep.
Man, the Joe got more triple-double than a Costco receipt. And you know how long a Costco receipt is, Skip?
I don't, but
you ain't never been to Costco?
I've not been to Costco. Sorry. Have you?
I have been to Costco. I got to go.
Do you?
Yeah, I think it is.
You're way ahead of me.
But, Skip, the question is, can Russ live without taking those bad shots? And that's the thing that you're going to have to, that's what the Lakers are going to have to live. Because he's going to jack up some threes. You're like, Russ, we didn't need that. He's going to turn the ball over. Like, Russ, come on. Slow it down, Russ. The question is, are the Lakers going to be able to live with that if Russ turns the ball over at a high clip like he normally does, if he starts living with some of those bad shots like we've seen him done? But I believe Russ is happy to be home. I believe he always wanted to play for his hometown team. All that other stuff, Skip, I'm going to take the approach. I'm going to wait and see.
Aha. Yet and still, the man sitting across from me, Shannon Sharpe, Shannon Sharpe, told me on Monday upon our return from vacation that the Lakers are better than they were last year. How can you justify it after what you just told me?
Skip, I mean, he's a better player. He's a better player than all the guys that they got rid of. So just by him...
Are you sure he's a more effective player in this system than Schroeder was?
Yeah.
Are you sure of that?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Dennis Schroeder in just a minute. It came to this for Dennis Schroeder.
I think every